she majored in PE, which was not petroleum engineering as her classmate and famous quarterback Terry Bradshaw used to brag, but rather physical education. As I said, she was a tomboy through and through and played most sports, including softball, well into her adult years, which was one of her favorites, and we enjoyed going and watching her as she played her games. She was a wife, marrying our dad on August 16, 1969 at St. Joseph's Catholic Church in Shreveport. We toasted their 52 years of marriage just last month. This made her a sister-in-law and an aunt as the Doyles and Vests united and the families expanded. And of course, she was a mother. And what a wonderful mother she was to her 2 sons, and later, she was a grandmother to her 7 amazing grandchildren. Mom was also a coach. Growing up, she was Coach Doyle, not just professionally, but she was our coach as well, both in life and literally on the sports field or the soccer pitch.
Yeah, so our mom helped me a lot when I was little, playing soccer, working on stuff in the backyard. And Mom and Dad drove us all over the city and surrounding areas for soccer games and tournaments and swimming and all the activities I was in. But one specific soccer memory I have is when I was in high school, as a freshman, our coach, his name was Bob Marley. Not that Bob Marley, but Bob Marley. And he was a cool guy. He and my mom were good friends. They were teachers and coaches, and they knew each other from the PE world in Wichita. And Bob Marley asked our mom, to substitute coach one of our freshman soccer games. And I was actually really proud and happy to have her there. I remember that. But I did try to influence her to sub out one of the other players on our team who I thought was playing poorly, in my infinite wisdom. This doesn't have a Hollywood ending. This kid didn't score a goal and win the game or anything like that. I just remember this. I don't even know what happened in the game. I just remember this because our mom stood up to me, respected her job as coach over her role as mom, and she didn't sub this kid out. So now I'm still a really big sports fan. Maybe a lot of you are too. I go to a lot of soccer games, and I love watching the Chiefs up in Kansas City. So I think all of us can point back to this moment and say, Barbara Doyle taught us that sometimes sports are more important than family. That only sometimes.
Our mom was fierce and loyal as she stood up for her family and her boys, especially as any good mama bear does. Once my soccer team was playing against another team that was full of rough players and bullies. One day they were playing really dirty, shoving us around in a scrimmage, and my mom would have none of it. So she blew her little whistle, and this tiny, 5-foot-tall, gray-haired Coach Mom marked us right out on the field and started yelling at those boys. And of course they laughed and smirked and gave it right back to her, which made her even more angry. So she kept yelling, and finally she concluded her little lesson with, and this is a direct quote, she said to their captain, this teenage boy, "And besides, you walk like a girl, so get out of my face." And he did. So she was very fierce, but had a big heart, especially for animals, because Mom was an animal lover.
Yeah, which, a lot of you in this vicinity absolutely know that our mom absolutely loves animals, all animals, every one of God's creatures, not snakes. Although she did face that fear, and we do have, not in this, I don't think they're in here, but we do have some pictures at home somewhere where she's bravely holding some really big snakes, but only in very carefully supervised scenarios. In real life, if she saw a snake, she'd come get me, and together we would say, "Chris, Dad, come get this snake." No way. But our mom, she does love animals, a very special kinship and connection with wildlife. Within the time that our mom and dad have lived here, we all went, my family and Mom and Dad went to the nearby Wilderness drive-through zoo, which some of you locals may have visited. Mom was extremely upset that she could not get out of the car. She wanted to get her hands on the zebras and llamas and all of the beasts at this wildlife park. Honestly, I believe I had to lock the windows in the car, and we literally begged her not to throw the door open and jump out. She just knew that she could bond with these animals and live peacefully with them forever. But had that happened, the rest of us would have gone to jail. So we held very, very strong to the rules. And dogs, of course, are her special love. And I have that strong love, too. She would stop and pet every single dog she would ever see out in public and enjoy a chat. A chat with the dog, I mean, because nobody cares about that human on the other side of the leash. Looking back, though, I can see that I'm entirely wrong about that. By connecting some dots that I understand now, I can see it was a little bit about the dogs, but not all about the dogs. It was about our mom having a genuine affinity for brightening the day of a stranger.
Our mom was also a kidder, a jokester, quick with a laugh. And she had a great, loud, hearty laugh. And she was an innovator. Here's a little known fact. Our mom invented the celebrity mashup of names. No, it's true. You know what I mean. Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez start dating and they're dubbed Benifer by the press. Well, my mom was the first to do this because when we were growing up, she used to get so mad at Kevin and I that she could not get our names out individually. So she just made a mashup and used that when she wanted to scold us. She would, and I think it was the first ever celebrity mashup. So she would call us Krevin. So Krevin is our celebrity couple name. As we got older and eventually married, Mom took on a new title. She became a mother-in-law to Alice and Abby. And not having daughters initially, she really embraced that role and viewed them as her very own daughters, to which they will attest to. Mom was also a friend, not just to the many people who have traveled from near and far to be here today, but she was also a fast friend even with strangers. She would run into someone in a parking lot and soon would be chatting with them as if they were long-lost best friends.
Right. Again, all you locals know this very, very well. Our mom would speak to anyone and everyone to lift them up with a smile and a kind word. People like janitors waiting on the side, unnoticed, waiting to clean something. She'd give them a moment and a few words of conversation. Now, recently, we thought she did this because it would give her a chance to hide her Alzheimer's for a few minutes and just be herself without fear of forgetting something or asking too many questions or being embarrassed or whatever. I would actually get upset sometimes that she would talk to all these strangers and she wouldn't talk so much to us or to my kids recently. But now I can see that this was a consistent effort on her part to recognize and show love to the unrecognized. And I do that too. I know I do. I have always done that. And I'm proud to realize I do that because of our mom. And I'll continue to greet, scratch, and hug all the friendly dogs I meet in the world. And I'll even look for people too who need a smile and a kind word, and I'll give that too. In this way, I'll honor our mom, and I'll also be giving her spirit some hugs and kisses, which is really kind of awesome because she's happier in heaven now, and she will keep on feeling this love until we see her again.
Our mom's fierce loyalty, that coach's heart that was always on display, and her unconditional love for family was incredibly nurturing. It helped us to grow up secure, confident, able to take chances in life, to develop, and to spread our wings and grow. We grew up laughing and roughhousing, and like her, loving Elvis Presley music and Star Wars movies, and even, I'll admit, The Sound of Music, which was her favorite movie. And we love Jesus because of the example of faith that she instilled in us, and because she held him in her heart first. And so we trust her to his merciful heart today, and we do so with deep gratitude for the gift that she was to all of us, to her friends, to her family, to her husband, to her sons, to her daughters, and to her grandchildren. Thank you very much. been here for almost a month, and I'm so grateful for the community support. And unfortunately, my family was not able to travel to be with us today, this weekend, due to illness. And so if you'll indulge me a few more minutes, I want to read one more letter from our oldest daughter and the oldest granddaughter, Madeline, to kind of reflect how Madeline, on behalf of all of the grandchildren, saw their grandmother. And then we'll close with my wife, who has videotaped some remarks, and with some help, we'll try to get that technology to work. But this is a letter that Madeline wrote in tribute to her grandmother. My name is Madeline, and I'm the oldest daughter of Chris and Alice Doyle, the oldest granddaughter of Jack and Barbara. It grieves me considerably to not be with you all in person today to share my words and memories about my grandma, but I am grateful for what I can share today from a distance. I've had the unique privilege of being very close with my grandma and Grandpa Doyle from a very young age. I remember staying with them when I was little, and my relationship with my grandma has always been one of adventure and camaraderie, as much as it was grandmother and granddaughter. My memories are filled with moments like watching her get ready for the day and talking to her while I waited, walked the dogs with her, first Princess, then Duchess, and then later Nick and Bo, or just running errands around town. When Grandma and Grandpa lived in Highlands Ranch in Denver, Colorado, visiting them was the equivalent of getting to go to an amusement park or another favorite destination. I loved that their house backed up to a field where ponies would graze about 100 yards from us. I was sitting next to my grandma when I watched The Sound of Music for the first time and shared my astonishment and excitement to her as I recognized that the same woman who played Mary Poppins was also Maria von Trapp. I would sometimes visit Grandma at the veterinary clinic where she worked, and I was always amazed at how the animals seemed to relax and trust her when she was around. They knew she was there to help them. She loved musicals, but her favorite was Phantom of the Opera. I will think of her every time I hear Music of the Night, which was her favorite song from the musical. She also loved dancing in the kitchen with me, doing Sudoku puzzles, and vanilla-flavored soda, or pop as she called it. When Grandma and Grandpa moved to Texas, I was able to see them more. Grandma and I spent many afternoons shopping and eating lunch at Panera or browsing a bookstore. We had so many shared interests that spending time with her often felt like spending time with a friend. She was a phenomenal listener and was always so encouraging. Even when I was being a punk or making mistakes, she never criticized me, but encouraged me in a way that made me want to change my behavior because I didn't want to disappoint her. After I started college, I would often FaceTime Grandma and Grandpa, and she was just the same, always so excited to see me and talk with me and hear about what I was doing in my life. And she would, of course, ask me if I had any young men in my life. Grandpa always had to suddenly go check on something when this topic came up, and I didn't mind her asking. I was touched that she always remembered to ask about the things that she thought were important to me, even if I didn't mention them up front. And she was like that with everyone. Grandma made friends with every person and every animal who crossed her path. She could make anyone laugh and made sure that the waitresses serving us dinner or the cashier at the grocery store knew that even if nobody else in the world thought they were special or mattered, she did. She could make everyone feel seen, noticed, and cared for. The woman I am today has been shaped by the adults in my life. While my parents are the first in that circle to influence me greatly, the next few people are without a doubt my grandparents, and especially Grandma Doyle. She has had a profound impact on my faith, on the way I see others, and the way I see myself. There were many hard moments growing up when I felt unsure of myself and what would happen in my life, and she constantly reminded me that she was in my corner and always there for me. And she always said to trust God, because He will take care of it. She was brave in her faith and in her generous kindness to others. I hope that I can be even just a quarter of the woman she was someday. In memory of her, and to all of you amidst this difficult and painful time, I leave you with the words she often said to me. May we all trust God, because He will take care of us, just like He took care of her. In love, Madeline Doyle. With Christina's help, we'll play some comments from my wife, Alice, and
But even though we are not with you physically, Jack, Chris, Kevin, Abby, Cece, and Joseph, we are very much with you spiritually. Today, I am in Woodstock, Virginia, and I will start by saying the thing that is most important. I, Alice Doyle, owe Barbara Doyle a debt I can never repay. When she came into my life, she changed it, and changed me with her love. I will never forget her. Dementia is a thief. It leaves the body, but steals the person, bit by bit. Our family has been losing Barbara for over a decade. In fact, when Jack and Barbara moved to Bella Vista, she was already in the throes of her disease. She was not fully herself there. Even her younger grandchildren did not know their grandmother as she used to be, and that is a tragedy. I am going to tell you about the Barbara I knew, my dear mother-in-law, who was also very much a second mom to me. Barbara first impacted me before we even met. My husband Chris and I, on our first date, had a day-long picnic on the grounds of the University of Kansas, and we discussed many things. The one that struck me most was the subject of his mother. My mom had always told me to pay attention to how men treat their mothers, and I was impressed by the way Chris talked about Barbara. I cannot remember at all what he said, except for one thing, that she liked to organize things in the kitchen. She used Tupperware and other plastic containers to keep everything in order. After I got to know Barbara, I experienced this firsthand. She loved to shop at the Container Store and Bed Bath & Beyond, and enjoyed buying containers much more than the things to put in them. I met Barbara in person one Saturday in October 1993 when Chris and I went to lunch with her and Jack at Carlos O'Kelly's Mexican Cafe in Lawrence, Kansas. We laughed our way through the meal, and that became a theme with us, eating and laughing. There was the time I was pregnant with Madeline, and we were laughing so hard at dinner that Jack said, "I'd give you the Heimlich maneuver, but I wouldn't know where to hold you." Then there was my 31st birthday. We were all out to dinner in Colorado after Chris and I had hiked the mountain. We made so much noise and laughed so hard that we were almost asked to leave the restaurant. At the Japanese restaurant one time, we surprised Barbara by telling the waiter it was her birthday. It wasn't. When they brought this special dessert and sang the song, Barbara went along with it, doing a little impromptu boogieing. You may not have known this, but Barbara could boogie, especially when ba 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 Barbara Ann. There were so many fun and funny times. What a blessing. Barbara was a daddy's girl. She spoke of her father with a reverence I could relate to. She was a tomboy and told stories about driving her go-kart and playing sports, and how she hated to wear dresses. It was no surprise that she grew up to become a PE teacher, and being a boy mom suited her perfectly. If you knew Barbara at all, you know she loved animals, especially dogs. She even volunteered at the Wichita Zoo for a while. Barbara had a special connection with animals, a kindness and consideration that was unique. When I met her, she had 2 schnauzers, Prince and Baron, then Duchess, then she fostered our dog Chaucer, then Nick, and then Bo. Whenever she visited our house, she loved on our dogs too. And in the most recent visits, our cats, in particular our cat Maeve, a black cat with the longest, craziest hair you've ever seen and a personality to match. Barbara would sit for long periods of time with Maeve on her lap, just petting her. I have noticed that animals know instinctively who the kind, compassionate humans are. Barbara was one of those people. Barbara was a nurturer. She cared for those she loved, fussing a lot when we were sick or down or just needing a little extra TLC. not really for the glass of water, or the tissues, or the medicine she provided, but because she noticed my needs and reached out in love. And I know my girls feel the same. Barbara had a quirky sense of humor, just like me. We had a lot of inside jokes. I especially remember one practical joke she and Chris played on me. Ella was a baby at the time. She was 15 months old and had not walked yet, but I was eagerly anticipating it any day. Barbara babysat for her one day, and when I got home, Barbara told me that Ella had taken her first steps. I was crushed to have missed that, but tried to smile bravely. Then Chris and Barbara turned to me in unison and said, "April Fools." No matter how old I get, I always fall for those jokes, and that one was a good one. In general, Barbara and I were easy with each other. When she was visiting, Barbara would always end up in the kitchen doing the dishes and say to me, "This is where the mother-in-law should be, where she can't get into trouble." I would scold her and grab a dish towel, wind it up, hit her on the butt, and then join her in the work. The truth is, though, Barbara was never that mother-in-law. She never resented me or jockeyed for position. She was not negative with me or about me that I know of. She was truly my biggest fan. She loved me fiercely and protectively and thought I was awesome. Not awesome, but just awesome. In Thornton Wilder's Our Town, Emily is given the chance to revisit one day of her life, after which she asks the question, do any humans ever realize life while they live it? Every minute? I've been thinking of that question since Barbara was ripped from my life. And I think, no, I did not realize life with her. I did not recognize the precious gift God gave me in her every minute. And if I could go back to one day with her, I wonder, which day would it be? The day we met? The day she and I went shopping for my wedding dress? One of our days in Madrid? The day of the sonogram when we found out I was having baby Mia? The day of the surprise 40th wedding anniversary party? One of the many birthdays? There were so many big, beautiful days with Barbara. But I think, like Emily, I would choose an ordinary day. I would travel to America's heartland, to 11327 Sheriat Street, Wichita, Kansas. On an ordinary day there, Barbara and I would go for a long walk and solve the problems of the world. We would pet the dogs. We would watch a football game in the living room, and then play liar's dice with Jack and Chris and Kevin and laugh a lot. I would sit in the kitchen at the low counter across from the laundry closet and talk to Barbara. We would talk and fold, and for some reason, I remember that the most. Barbara lived a wonderful life. I know that from my own beautiful memories and from the people whose lives she touched deeply. Her life is so woven into ours that we could never separate it without becoming undone ourselves. One of my favorite Christian songs is Good to Me by Audrey Assad. One verse says, "The fox in the vineyard will not steal my joy. You are good to me." The circumstances around Barbara's death are a fox in the vineyard, trying to steal our joy. They are a stumbling block, tempting us to cry out to God, "Where were you? Where are you?" God is good all the time, and that includes this time. And I will tell you something that I know to be true with the rock-solid certainty of faith. Barbara is with the Lord. She is whole, she is happy, and she is free. During the 2 dark weeks that she was lost to us, she was not lost to God. She is his little lamb, and he, the good shepherd, picked her up, held her close, and carried her home in his arms.
In the name of the Lord. That's our declaration.
Thank you all so much for sharing with us today as we remember our mother. Thank you for coming. Thank you in advance for all the support that you're going to give my father as he begins a new normal. And I just wish you all the best of days. God bless you all. Thank you.